Cubicle.
I could say the Bears' all-time leading scorer. I could say 18-year NFL veteran. But for now, I think I'll just say he's the head coach at Rolling Meadows. He's Robbie Gold. What made you go from playing football to coaching?
I was coaching another high school, fell in love with coaching. Football is a part of who I am, but it's also an opportunity for me to be able to give back and give these kids an opportunity at Rolling Meadows High School to understand what they could do as a group.
The Sports Cubicle, Sunday nights, 9 p.m., WCPT.
The Sports Cubicle.
But the bottom line is this: the state of Illinois and the city of Chicago have to do what's best for the taxpayers. And the Chicago Bears need to do what's best for the Chicago Bears. The hope is that they can find something down the middle that is beneficial to not only the Bears organization on and off the field, but also the taxpayer, which is the fan that are filling up those stadiums and buying all that merchandise. That's who they owe it to.
The Sports Cubicle. Sunday nights at 9 on WCPT.
The Sports Cubicle.
Economics professor at Smith College, Massachusetts, Andrew Zimbalist.
When Chicago is approached, or Illinois is approached for new public funds to build yet another stadium, it shouldn't be, hey, this is going to be an economic boom for the city. It's not going to be. It should be, how much is it worth to us culturally to keep these teams here?
The Sports Cubicle with Mike Mercado, Devin Tingle, Dan Marver, and Paul Chivari. Sunday nights, 9 p.m. on WCPT.
Offensive line, coaching, progress, the leadership on this team. The for me, the constant mindset of keep going. And then I think us getting out there and getting our momentum going, us getting out there and executing, us believing in each other, is what you credited to.
That was Chicago Bears Williams after throwing 4 touchdowns in a 35-16 win over the Jacksonville Jaguars in London. The Bears are now 4-2, and we are here to break it down on the Sports Cubicle. I'm Sports from the Couch. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. You can also check me out over at Bear Era on YouTube, and it was a wonderful game. Back-to-back weeks where the Chicago Bears fans were able to enjoy a easy victory, all things being considered, in the crazy National Football League. We're going to break it all down, what we liked, what we didn't like, and what we could look forward to next week during the bye week, and the looming game between the number 1 and number 2 overall pick, Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, the Chicago Bears, the Washington Commanders. So why don't we start with something that I was really focusing on over on Bear Era, something that I mentioned to EJ and Kieran, was the things I were highlighting were the coaching staff, Eric Washington, Shane Waldron, and obviously Matt Aberflus, and the entire coaching staff. And all things being equal, for what was a rough first 2 weeks of the season, this coaching staff has really done a good job of putting their team in the best positions possible to win games that a lot of us think they're supposed to. And we're going to get into that in a little bit about their whole scheduling, the type of victories they've had. But it was something I was questioning, were this coaching staff and them going to this London trip against Jacksonville. It was a home game for Chicago, but we know Jacksonville is kind of the unofficial London team. But something that I think goes underrated, under the radar, is Bears fans traveling. The Chicago Bears fan base travels. It's also international. Obviously, you know that if you listen to Bear Era. But if this, and if nothing else showed, a sleeping giant that is the Chicago Bears, if they are a legitimate good team in the NFL. I don't even have to say contender, Super Bowl contender. It's just if they're an interesting team, if they're having interesting, fun games, that is something the NFL is loving. And I think what we saw in that crowd in London was a showing of that. So I wanted to highlight those two things specifically, were the coaching staff taking this team, this professional team, as we've seen, right? It's full of pros. Even the rookies are full-grown professional athletes in the NFL at this point. At least that's how they hold themselves. They took this team as a business trip, and they handled it as a business trip. And that goes from the offense, the defense, the entire team. And it was I think, a wonderful showing by the entire team against a Jacksonville Jaguars team that may have a lot of talent on offense, even on defense. We're missing a lot of pieces. This is a bad organization right now. in a bad spot. They came off an emotional win last week, but you had to handle business. This was a game in which the Bears had to handle business. And the emotion that the crowd brought in what was a quote-unquote home game, but against the unofficial London team, the coaching staff and the fan base, I think, brought it, and the players absolutely executed, and beyond that, showed out in this game against Jacksonville. Why don't we talk a little bit about that? Caleb Williams, 4 touchdowns, 23 of 29, 226 yards, an interception. DeAndre Swift, 17 carries, 91 yards, 1 touchdown. Cole Kmet, 5 receptions, 70 yards, and 2 touchdowns. How about Keenan Allen? 5 receptions, 41 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The ball went around. Roman Dunze had 2 receptions. DeAndre Swift had 4. Roshan Johnson had 2. DJ Moore had 4, almost a touchdown. Mercedes Lewis even got into it. And the ball went around, and that is something that happened last week. That is something we've seen this week. That is something that Shane Waldron, I think, kind of did in Seattle with his 3 receivers. It's an offense that has a lot of talent, and you're seeing that Caleb, while he has his favorites, I think we could see that Roman Dunze and Cole Kmet are some of his favorite receivers. They have the most chemistry, and he has the security blanket in DJ Moore. To see Keenan Allen get involved was an absolute treat, because you know how dangerous he could be, not just in the middle of the field, not just from the in between the 20s, but when you're in the red zone, having bodies like Cole Kmet out there, having bodies out there like DJ Moore, Roman Dunze, and then you add Keenan Allen on top of how intelligent all of them are, all the natural ability they all have. If you're even scheming them half right correctly, Caleb Williams is going to find them. And we saw that throughout this entire game. Caleb Williams on his feet, whether he's scrambling, trying to extend a play, getting a first down. It was a moment that this entire offense continued its development, but showed out a little bit. Really came out and, beyond just the 4 touchdowns, it was a really and when you think about the opening drive, how that kind of looked, and how the start of the game kind of looked, to see it all kind of just, I think, marinate, and how they just were patient and just kept going at it, is what I like to see. So, with all that being said, right, and we knew the defense was going to perform. I mean, it's the easiest fallback this season. It's just going to be the defense is going to get turnovers. We expect turnovers. I want to still see, if I do have one complaint from both the offense and the defense, I would like to see on the defensive side, as much as I love the turnovers, and I'm not going to complain. This is a great defense. This is amazing. Again, keeping another team under 21 points. I would like to see them not only turn over the ball, whether it's by a strip sack, a fumble, an interception. I want to see this defense score a touchdown. I want them to see them convert that turnover into 6 points. I know that's me being greedy, and I know this offense is keeping up their end of the bargain the last few weeks, where they're turning those turnovers into points, and that's something you didn't always see in Chicago Bears offense history, but I think that's something I would like. If I'm looking for just little things, right? Just a little thing to add to this defense is, could we turn those turnovers into points? And I think for the offense is even more of spreading the ball out. As crazy as it is, right? Like, I would like to see even more DJ Moore involved early on. I like to see them get people involved early. I like to see them get people's confidence up early. Give it to Cole Kmet as you're opening up the drive. Give it to DJ Moore. Give it to Keenan Allen. Let Roman Dunze go something down the field. Like, I want to see that. I want to see the continuation of that. I like the idea that Caleb Williams threw an interception and came right back the next drive and looked good. Like, that's the thing that I want to see even more of. I challenge Caleb Williams on, is the maturity thing. Caleb Williams does something that I think Jayden Daniels has done. I think a lot of the good young quarterbacks, like a CJ Stroud, and then the young quarterbacks that became the staples right now of the NFL, like the Burrows and the Allens and the Hurts, and you name your favorites, right up to the Mahomes, all the way on, is how fast they learn, how fast they adapt, how fast when they make a mistake, they don't do it again. Not to say that they're never going to do it again in their entire career, but that they register it, they understand it, and they implement it. That's what Caleb does. And that's what we've seen over the last few weeks. So I think you can't sneeze on, right? You can't poo-poo a 35-16 victory in the National Football League. Not in 2024. You can't. Not when there's crazy scores, crazy upsets, just crazy games, crazy injuries. And that's not to mention that this Bears team on defense was banged up. Lost Kyle Gordon in the game. Didn't have Brisker, didn't have Stevenson. Like, they were hurt. And somehow still kept Jacksonville to 16 points. Jacksonville needed this win. And the Bears did everything possible to not only just keep the pressure on them, but never allow them any type of momentum. And that was, I think, a testament to it just being circled back, that they'd handled this like a business trip going into a bye week, knowing that they could get 2 games over 500. And that brings me to I think the biggest talking point after this victory, after the Bears win 35-16, going to 4-2, 4 touchdowns thrown by Caleb Williams. We're breaking it down here on the Sports Cubicle, here on Sports from the Couch. I'm your host, Mike Mercado. You can also check me out on Bear Era Podcast. Shirts is on YouTube. It's been an amazing launch. Thank you all for the support. It has been overwhelming. And it's the talk about the schedule. The Chicago Bears have not had the toughest of schedules, right? And it is something we can all agree on. It's something that we all have to put on the table. I think it's a little disingenuous to believe that in any given week, the NFL, you can't lose a game you're supposed to win and you won't win a game you're not supposed to. It happens all the time. But yes, it's the one mantra of us on this show that we try to do is we only talk about the game that was, the week before, and the week coming up. Because that's only the sample size we could talk about. Now, when we talk about big picture stuff, we could talk about the games that were in the past in context. Who was injured? Who was suspended? What was the storylines going into those games? But your quality of opponent is a big factor in that. And a 24-17 win against the Titans, a loss against the Texans, 13-19. They had a game they probably should have won. One that they're going to look back on in the end of the season, one way or the other. Whether you're a playoff team or not, whether we're talking about where you're playing a playoff game or if you're waiting for a draft, is a 16-21 loss in Indianapolis. But you beat the LA Rams in Chicago, 24-18. You beat up on the Panthers, 36-10. You beat up on the Jaguars, 35-16. It's the NFL. You can't take for granted a 3-game winning streak. Because remember where I was, and I'm talking about me now. And I think you all who are listening to us here, watching us on YouTube, probably agree with this. After the Texans loss and the Colts loss and not looking all that great in the season opener against Tennessee, things were getting a little choppy in the waters. The sea was getting a little warm. People were getting a little worried. The NFL is week to week. It's sample sizes. And that Chicago Bears timeline, in this timeline, the first 3-4 games were at best. There's no description for it. Like, that's what I mean. So as bad as things seemed then, as questionable as every decision made seemed, 3 wins in the NFL straight. It's nothing to just throw away. And you beat Matthew Stafford. You beat Andy Dalton and the Panthers that were starting to put things together, starting to get a little bit of momentum together. You beat the Jaguars, who came off an emotional win in London with a lot of talent on this team, when a lot of your defensive talent in the secondary were missing. To get to 2 games over 500, I don't think that's something that we can ignore. I don't know. In my opinion, I put some stock into it. But I think there's an entire equation to this to find the answer of what's their record going to be. Did they make the playoffs? Did they underachieve? Did they overachieve? Did they progress? Did they step back? It is just one element in that. However you put as much value in it, that's each person individually. But to me, I don't ignore it. I don't put everything on it, but I understand how different this show would have been had they lost to Carolina, had they lost to Los Angeles, had they lost to Jacksonville. Having a bye week right now and had things gone south in any of those games. Now, you look at it, feeling pretty good in a bye week, trying to get as healthy as you can with the rest of the season through. You still got more than halfway of a season left, but you've got enough. You got some big wins underneath you. You're 2 games over 500. Get some help for a long haul push. And what greets you, what awaits you, is everybody in the country putting their television on for the afternoon games. Where on Sunday, October 27th, it will be Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears in Washington against the Commanders and Jayden Daniels. Imagine the vibes, the storylines, the shows if the Bears don't have that 3-game winning streak, if they aren't 2 games over 500, if we haven't seen the progression of this offense, if we haven't seen the play of this elite defense, if this coaching staff hasn't garnered some form of leeway by its fan base. That's why you can't sneeze on wins in the NFL, winning streaks in NFL, and you can't ignore losing streaks because they all matter, because in the NFL, it's just so damn short of a season. And everybody's lifespan is so finite in its time. So something that I know the Bears fans, the National Football League fans, fan bases around the entire sports world are talking about, not just about the Bears, but other teams. How legit are they? How real can they be down late, down the stretch in the season, in a playoff scenario, in a playoff hunt? Because we are getting to that point now. We kind of have some idea of, as random as the NFL is, we kind of have an idea of what some of these teams are or where they belong in the pecking order. Games, each game individually may change, but in general, we have an idea. So that's where we're at this point now in the NFL season. So heading into a bye week, I think the vibes are good. I think the optimism is pretty high, while maybe still tempered. I think is educated optimism, where you have to keep in mind the schedule. You take the good and the bad games we've seen from this offense, the good games we've seen from this offense. We've seen some of the tendencies that get the defense into some trouble. We've seen the defense absolutely bail out this entire team and win games. And we can see what the future holds for this team when it comes to their opponents. Nothing more with more of a spotlight than that game against Washington. But right after that, you're going against Kyler Murray in the desert in Arizona. And after that, you're coming back home and you're playing the Patriots. And Drake May would have had a few more games underneath his belt. And then in that 4-game stretch, right? That 4-game stretch that is coming up now. It ends with the Packers in Chicago. So you, I think, needed to enjoy this bye week, reflect on a fun first 6 weeks of the NFL season for the Chicago Bears. And if you are the Bears, learn from the slow start, from the inefficiencies, and try to adapt and grow in the changes you've made. And the progression that we've seen will continue. Doesn't mean you're going to go undefeated. Doesn't mean you're going to go 3-0 the next 3. You're going to go 4-0 the next 4. But it means you're doing the right things and you are continuing to elevate yourself, to put yourself in better company around the NFL. And I hope, and this is a thing that a lot of Bears coaches, specifically Matt Nagy, and I think bad coaches, bad organizations have this fault. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Caleb and Jayden going into that game. But you're the team coming off a bye, 3-game winning streak. All things are looking and feeling good. And you're relatively healthy. You had some guys miss some games, but you're relatively healthy. When you look around the absolute medical field, the 7 stages, 9 stages, 13 stages of hell that is the NFL right now in injuries, you need to show up that game after your bye week. No dumb penalties, no weird drives, no weird play calling. You got to come into this game right. Again, that's how fast the NFL moves. But until we get to October 27th, until we get to that matchup, enjoy, Bears fans. Enjoy a 4-2 start. Enjoy seeing an elite defense, and enjoy seeing a top number 1 pick quarterback progressing with a offense that has legitimate top tier star receivers, a running back that is holding up his end of the bargain, and an offensive line that I have absolutely buried on multiple times, but has changed faces and changed dynamics and is playing pretty good football. Enjoy that. And quite frankly, enjoy the NFC North, because that is the thing that has everybody scratching their head right now. The NFC North, the 5-0 Vikings, the 4-1 Lions, the 4-2 Bears, the 4-2 Packers. Now, technically, I think the Bears will be missing the playoffs because the Packers have a tougher strength of schedule or quality of opponents. I mean, it doesn't matter. That stuff will all work out, but the NFC North is on fire. And I think Caleb Williams is the first number 1 overall pick in the modern day era to, after his first 6 games, to be 4-2, over 500, the best record. Again, numbers and whatever, we can make numbers do whatever, but these numbers, the only thing I know is the NFC North is tough. And the NFC North, of course, is going to be at its toughest when people like me, Bears fans like me, are like, oh, we're finally arriving. And of course, everybody in our division is stacked. So it's going to be a fun November, December when these teams meet. But we want to know your thoughts, Bears fans. The Chicago Bears beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 35-16 in London, moving their record to 4-2, heading into the bye week as we get ready for the huge matchup on Sunday, October 27th in Washington between the number 1 pick, Caleb Williams, and his Chicago Bears versus the number 2 pick, Jayden Daniels, and his Washington Commanders. What did you guys think about week 6? What did you think about this big Bears win? Caleb Williams throwing 4 touchdowns, this defense being elite, the receivers absolutely dominating. We want to know all your thoughts. Let me know. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. Subscribe to us on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle. Search Sports from the Couch wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Of course, you could check out the Sports Cubicle on WCPT 820 and Heartland Signal. Just check us out on SoundCloud, WCPT 820. And check us out over at Bear Era. Join right now. The bandwagon's getting huge. Bears fans are finding their safe zones, their places to talk, to hear some awesome quality Bears topics and conversation. It's Bear Era Podcast on YouTube. It has been an awesome journey for us there. Shout out to Blue Wire Podcast Network, and of course, homage for making us look good over there at Bear Era Podcast. So, Bears win 4-2 in the season, heading into a bye week, 35-16 over the Jaguars in London, and Caleb Williams throws 4 touchdowns. Pretty good, Bears fans. Pretty good. We got more coming up next on this edition of the Sports Cubicle and Sports from the Couch. I'm your host, Mike Mercado.